Okay, so this is why it got um, important that I got treatment fast. The things that, there's some people that have not as serious of problems, but what my doctor saw was that I was having, based on my past medical history, he was able to kind of piece together a steady decline and was concerned about what was going on. Um, our country is not doing research on it because, what people don't realize is that there's not a lot of things are not researched in our country. So where the research that like NIH publishes for hemiplegic migraine comes from is from Japan and Finland and some places that are doing research. And that's true with a lot of rare things. So my doctor had just been to a thing that weekend. God always has a way of putting things in the right place at the right time. Because of kind of how things happen. So he didn't really tell me much. He just said, you can't go back to work. So I went from having a job right at that moment and me making about 60% of our income and me being the one carrying our insurance to not having a job and us having to pick up my husband's crappy non-management insurance. And because he was working for a different company, actually was what it was. And their insurance was more expensive and not as good as mine was. And um, it was like our life fell apart at that moment. And it fell apart because I felt like what I did. And I obviously knew that I hadn't done anything, but at the same time, you're the cause of what's going on. So we went from, we're expecting our first grandchild, and then, I've talked about Raven in a previous video. She had just had her preemie son, who was like our grandson. So I would stop at the store on the way home and I would buy them each an outfit. And I would go grocery shopping and not worry about what I was spending. It's like, yes, I just went grocery shopping this weekend, but I think I want to have this for dinner instead. It was just like we were not financially stupid by any means, but we didn't have to worry about things. Bills were on automatic payments and just to make our life simpler, and we didn't have to worry about things. We were very comfortable. Do we buy my medicine because I'm suddenly on a bunch of medicine, or pay the lights, or buy groceries this week? And the lowest point in my life was when I had to create a GoFundMe account so that friends and family of ours could easily deposit money, put money in there so that I could get my medicine. And, we had never had to get help. It was, It was horrible. Um, our internet got turned off, our cable got turned off, our with our internet, we lost our house phones. Um, so, we kept our cell phone on because here is what happened with me. About a week after I was diagnosed, I had a seizure one night. And it obviously terrified everybody in the house. It was our then 4-year-old son that found me. And found me on the kitchen floor. And it was my body falling onto the floor and banging around that woke him up. My husband was at work. He worked overnights then, but he woke up. Our oldest son was staying there, and our youngest son went and got our oldest son. And then it was, I went to the hospital and they checked me out and they sent me back home. And then it was within the next couple days that I had my first stroke, which isn't a stroke, but it looks like a stroke, and your body thinks it's having a stroke. At least in my case, and I know it's not true for everybody's case, but my blood pressure will actually go up to 210 over 180 or 190. And I will completely lose the left side of my body. It looks like I've had a stroke. And I cannot tell you how many times my husband has had to pick me up off the floor. Or how many ambulance rides I have taken since this started. But, the worst part has been losing myself. Going from this vivacious, always happy, very active person who was always giving, and, this incredibly loving person who was very open and becoming this very closed off, depressed, person that my life did a complete 180. And it wasn't like the day I got diagnosed. I mean, the day I got diagnosed, I lost my job. We lost my income. We lost my health insurance. And then, I was told then you need to apply for disability. That was in April. It took me until January to apply for disability. I had a van, and I made every payment on that van until December, when I owed half of a payment. And I could not make that last half a payment. I had made every payment on that van for 3.5 years, and I could not make that half a payment, and the van got repossessed. And that was when I finally said, okay, I have to pay for I have to do the disability insurance, or file for disability, because I kept thinking they're going to come up with the right pill combination, and they'll fix me, and I'll be back at work. They're going to make everything better. But that was the moment that I realized that it wasn't going to get better. 9 months later. And then it took me, I would start answering questions on the SSDI form, and would be in tears the whole time filling it out, because you are having to write down everything that you can't do and how this has affected you. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest things of all was, then they put you through, oh my gosh, they put you through I can't think of the right word. They put you through all kinds of stuff trying to get approved. And you're like, man, if I had a choice, I'd be out working. I don't want this. But so one of the things that they did was they sent me for a psychological exam, which is really an IQ test. It's IQ. It's IQ testing is what it is. I know because our oldest son is on the autism spectrum. One of the things that I've found out since then, since I've done research about all of this, is that the same gene that mutated, that caused me to have FHM1, familial hemiplegic migraine 1, and my mom, and one of our daughters, and most likely our other daughter, but she's not ready to get tested yet, which I completely understand. And we think one of our granddaughters has it, because she's showing the signs that Mom and I had, and Jennifer, our one daughter, had when she was young. I forgot where I was going, but anyway, so we took our son to Johns Hopkins, to Kennedy Krieger Institute, to be evaluated, and they were doing a study, so they asked us to participate in the study. And part of it was that they evaluated kind of the whole family. So my husband and I did IQ testing, and I know what my IQ test was before. My IQ test, I tested at 138, and my husband was 141. So my IQ test, when I got the results back from my psychological exam, was 82. And it's not that I am stupider. It's that my brain, this disease has affected my ability to process information so greatly that it has affected that number from 138 to 82. And 2 years ago, I went on my own and had a new one done because I wanted to know, where things stood now. And I came up with the same results. Because, I had tried doing like the different things, the apps on your phone to help you, the brain building things and stuff. And I come up at the same place. But that's why, we laugh about it, about me with mathing and everything. And that's, one of the things that's hard is because forever I did all of the money. And I said in one of my videos, I talked about like paying the electric bill twice or forgetting to pay it, or um, paying it and forgetting to write it down. And that's stuff that really happened to us after. And it was even before I got diagnosed. I was doing stuff like that. And that was part of why we knew that something was going on, because I had handled everything so perfectly. Not that I was perfect, but I was just always so on top of that stuff. And then over a really like a 6 month period, just kind of everything, I don't know, everything just kind of started falling apart. Forgetting doctor's appointments, and then getting a phone call from the doctor saying, hey, you missed this appointment. It's like, for me or for the kids. And I mean, it was just crazy stuff. So anyway, the stuff that I really had just lost myself. And part of what happens is there's a couple different theories. One of them is that because they don't really completely understand how the brain works. So one of them is they know it involves the calcium channel blockers. One of them is that you get a calcium burst in your brain, and that kind of short circuits everything and sends out a false signal into your body along your nervous system, and then that signal lands somewhere in your nervous system, and however your body chooses to interpret that signal is what your body does, how your body reacts to it. So, like that one day I had a seizure, and I continued having seizures that could not be controlled with medication and didn't show up on EEGs because they weren't electrical in nature. Um, they did show up in my blood work, but for 5 years, I think, because I wasn't able to drive. I didn't start driving until I had been seizure free for 9 months. Now I have a completely different thing. Once the seizures went away, it was replaced with, I never really thought about that. The seizures went away, and now I have something called paradoxical vocal cord dysfunction, where my vocal cords will just decide to quit working and will shut. And that means that I stop breathing and I fall. I just stop breathing and I fall. Or the other part of that is that I will be eating and will literally not know how to swallow. I have to, excuse me, talk myself through how to swallow and keep trying it. And so I've had to give up foods like Rice Krispies and rice, and I call them small foods. Anything that's small, I've had to give up because I'll choke on them or, aspirate them. So for safety, I had to just give all of those foods up. And then the biggest thing was I had to give up going places. It wasn't at first, and it happened gradually over a few months, but it started off at like Walmart. We were in Walmart and I broke out in a I got like really hot and started feeling really nauseous, and then my left foot started dragging. And I couldn't figure out what's going on. And then it started happening in the grocery store, and I asked, at this point I had the great neurologist, and I asked her about it, and she said, well, yeah, it makes perfect sense. You've got people talking, you've got all kinds of noises, you've got people moving around, you've got all the color of boxes everywhere, you've got hemiplegic migraines, which overexcites your nervous system, and then you've got fibromyalgia, that is an overexcited nervous system. Your body can't handle it. Then you go out into a situation where you're getting major amounts of input. So you can't handle it. You can't do it. So they gave me lorazepam to see if I could take lorazepam and be able to go do that stuff. See if it would just kind of relax me enough to be able to go and do that stuff. And it didn't work. But we did discover that if I can hit this certain place, I have like a 15-minute window that if I take lorazepam, at this perfect 15-minute window, I can stop a seizure. um, because I still have one kind of seizure left, but I it's the ones where I just stare off. It's like my body needs a reset and I just stare off into space. So, but I mean that's been the hardest part, is that I lost everything. I can't even, like, oh my god. I wanted nothing more. I mean, Jim and I, before we even got married, when we were still teenagers, we talked even then about being grandparents and sitting on the porch in rocking chairs and watching our grandchildren playing, and their parents running around in the yards with them. I mean, this has been something that we have waited for forever. And now it kills me. And we talked about going over to their houses and everything, but I have to stay in these four walls so much. And it's hard. And then there was the guilt of what that did to my family, and feeling like I had let everybody down, and taken everything away from all of them and all of their hopes and dreams, and then of course I've passed this on to my children and maybe my grandchildren, and because the girls have gotten it as hemiplegic migraines and my sons have gotten it as autism spectrum disorder. And It's just like, and there were some really, really, really dark times throughout this, really dark, when I just thought it would be much better, that I wasn't here at all. So,